All right, I think we'll get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rahman Mustafa, and I'm one of the board members of the AFB UK, part of the mentoring team. So today we have the Navigating the Workplace as a Graduate Engineer event, which is part of our transition, which is something we've done all throughout the whole day with a CV and interview clinic this morning. So I hope some of you have been able to participate in that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have Allegria. I'm going to say hi to everyone.
Hi.
Hi. We have Noah.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Winston.
Hi.
Excellent. So these three are graduate engineers, and they're going to share their story with us, and we're going to ask them a few questions. So I hope you have some questions lined up. So yes, I'll start ladies first. Allegria, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and what you do and where you worked in your journey as a graduate engineer.
Okay, so my name is Allegria Gitonzi. I am working as a graduate software engineer. I work at Siemens in Ashby. I graduated from Leeds Beckett University in electrical and electronic engineering. That was 2 years ago. So I've been on the graduate scheme for 2 years now, and I'm due to end in September. In my journey, I've also done an internship when I was at uni. It was a 4-year sandwich, and I did 1 year at Siemens as well for an internship. So I'll be able to answer questions about that as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Moving on to Noah.
Yeah, so I'm a graduate engineer at WSP. I work in the railway division, and more specifically, I work in the systems engineering division. I graduated from the University of Leicester in 2018. But then I got my graduate scheme almost a year after. So I started my graduate scheme in September 2019. So I was a bit of a lazy one when it came to applying at the end of uni, and then I wasn't as serious as other people, so that's probably what made me kind of take quite long in applying. But when I did get serious, I actually happened to be I participated in transition. I got a lot of help with my CV building. I got a mentor from AFB as well that really helped me with my application process and interviewing, and then so then after that I ended up landing a job at WSP.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Noah. Winston.
Okay, my name is Winston OJ. I think, considering the length of time, I think the last time I was a graduate was over 8 years ago. Okay. So I graduated in 2010, and I'd had a few internships at WEA Group. 2 years after, I became, should I say, a full-blown mechanical engineer in the WEA Group, dealing with centrifugal pumps. That was in Glasgow, and moved all the way to Bedford in England as an project applications engineer for Allen steam turbines. Did that for another year, then went to Dubai. Did another project applications engineer job in Dubai for about 6 months, then moved to Aberdeen with WEA Group. So I officially left WEA Group in September last year because I thought I needed to further my career. So if anyone would have remembered, I was in the AFB transition event sometime last year, acting like a new graduate because the last time I had an interview was God knows when. So I currently work for Bumi Armada now, which has started working as a senior mechanical engineer. I've been there since January, so just dealing with day-to-day engineering issues for the FPSO cracking field. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, so on to questions. So my first question would be for Noah, seeing as you're a more recent grad.
Yeah.
So how did you find like applying for graduate schemes? You said you did take a bit longer, but the process of it, and did you have a
So
strategy?
yeah, so at the start, so I started probably applying at the end of my masters, or at the start of my master, sorry. So that was around September 2017. So I kind of underestimated the whole application process. I thought, oh, it's just going to be like applying for like a normal Tesco's job and it's not going to be too hard. Completely underestimated it. And I was getting rejections left, right, and center from literally everywhere. And then after a while, I just kind of put it in the back of my mind thinking, you know what, I need to pass this. I had to do well in this master's, so let me wait. Then after a while, probably towards halfway through my master's, I started to realize actually I really need to start applying. So started really getting a bit more serious with the application process, but I was still getting rejections because I've never really had to apply for a graduate job before. So what I done was I heard about AFB before, so I found out that they had a mentorship program. So I quickly emailed saying I need a mentor, please help me. Um, I got a mentor, and that completely changed my application process because now I had someone to actually guide me through my CV, my interviewing skills. So first going through the CV, my mentor said your CV's rubbish. You need to completely redo this whole thing. So once I got that right, then I started to get more. I started to pass the CV process, and I started to get more interviews. But then my interviewing skills weren't that great, so then I had to start. I started doing more interview building techniques and learn about how to improve my interview skills. And then he started encouraging me to go to more AFB events. So I started to go to more events. I started networking a bit more. I started meeting more engineers. Started to learn more about the industry in that process as well. And then I started learning about what kind of things recruiters are looking for. So after a while, later on, once after a few months later, so this probably around, let's say, getting to after my masters, about November time. That's when I felt really confident going to interviews because of all the experience I've had in practicing my CV, practicing improving my CV and interviews. And then after that, I started. I after that, the last transition event I went to was something like this. Was a CV building and interview event, and then at the end of the event, they kind of tell you, oh, if you do this whole interview process, and they kind of tell you at the end, oh, will you have got the job or not? At the end of the event, they said, no, you wouldn't have got the job, funny enough. And then, but they gave me a complete list of what I got wrong and what I could have done better. And then I used that on my next interview, which I had a few months after that. And then, yeah, I applied those skills, and then I ended up landing the job that I have now.
Excellent, excellent. So just for people to be aware, like how many interviews do you feel like you had going into this current role that you're in now?
Is that including phone interviews or face-to-face interviews or all together?
Yeah, let's say applications. How many applications did you do?
Oh, I did about 50. So
50.
50, 60 applications, I reckon. Yeah, I applied literally to so many places. And I think for me, what I was doing wrong at the start was I was just applying everywhere. I had a generic CV and I just shotgun application and just spread it everywhere. But then I think the most important thing I done was actually start tailoring my CV for specific companies and seeing what they want. I think that's the most important thing I started to do.
Got you. All right, thank you for that, Noah. Next question for Allegra. I'm curious, for your application process for Siemens, did you have to do an assessment day, or was it just an interview? What was the process?
I didn't do any assessment day for my graduate job because I had already done an internship with them. So I was carried through that. But for my internship, yes, I did do that. There was the first step about, the online questionnaire that you needed to complete. And after that, then there was a phone interview and then an in-person one in an assessment center.
And how did you find the assessment center?
It was nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie. And I was just at the end of the second year at the time. So at that time I was very unsure of like the skills that I had and how I could present that to the recruiters. But what I found out was when I was going to the assessment center, it was just because it was already because I had passed the CV part. So my CV was already okay. And when I got there, it was just a question of personality, how you present yourself to others. You know, they do questions about like how you interact in a group and how you communicate and stuff. So it was just a question of how, you know, you portray yourself in front of your bosses, your potential bosses, and your potential coworkers.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, just to tag on to what Allegria said, I think it's very important once you get to the stage of an interview, that means you've already passed the criteria you're going to pass. The next step is for them to see themselves working with you. So that is very important, and just know that you've already achieved a lot by getting to the interview. So yeah, thank you for that, Allegria. I hope my internet isn't cutting out. Is everyone all right? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Excellent. So moving on to yourself, Winston. So you've been a graduate for you were a graduate quite a while ago. What was your experience from being in the graduate scheme to transitioning out of the scheme?
I think the first thing everyone should understand is education doesn't end after graduation. So people tend to believe that once you graduated and you walk into a workplace, you're the expert. And when people give you information, you just tend to like brush it off your shoulder and think, oh no, I know this already. We did something with dynamics back in uni, so it's totally different. I think if you have the mindset that the reason people are employed and certain people have their own roles, is just for you to basically figure out what you want to do in the long run. And what the graduate schemes tend to do these days, or what they did at my time, is they put us through rotation. I think that's quite normal now. So you go from departments to departments, and at some point you might end up in procurement. You might be an engineer, or you end up in procurement. And you've got all these, sheets and all these, vendor sourcing sheets all that year, and you're like, why am I doing this? I'm an engineer. I shouldn't be touching all this. But when I first got the job, my mom said to me, she said, first thing is you've got to be humble. I think it's all about humility. And if you go in and you act like you basically are the champion of everything, then they will kick you out of the workplace. And it's a vicious environment, especially when it comes into the engineering industry. And because some of the older heads, we call them, they don't necessarily share information with you. They want to keep those information because that's what makes them relevant. So you trying to get that information from them is like trying to break into the Fort Knox. So I think I'm just sticking to the navigation workplace scheme here because for me it was really hard. First of all, I'll deviate a little bit. First of all, being African in an environment where it's predominantly, guys from Scotland. I'm not insinuating anything. You have certain barriers you've got to cross, and that's your accent. People need to understand what you're saying. And secondly, not everyone went to the same school. We all have different forms of education. So you need people to be able to trust you, that you know what you're talking about. And the only way they can trust you that you know what you're talking about is if you show them that, every information that's being passed on to you, you're taking notes and you're executing. And so for me, the graduate scheme was the first year was the hardest, because I did an internship previously, and then I left and never went back to uni. And just before I graduated, they called me back. And, Allegria was saying it all pans down to how well you're doing an internship. means you most likely wouldn't go through the whole hassle of applying for 1,000,001 jobs. So, they called me back before I did my final year exams. And, well, what do you think my answer was? Hell yeah. There was no way I was spending time and, applying for more jobs. So for me, it was an easy transition straight from uni. I was about doing my master's. I was already on the MH path. And then they came and said, oh, you want to do a job? And I looked at it, I was like, do I do the master's or do I just get a job now? First thing that came into my head was engineering, oil and gas, money. And coming from my background, I'm like, I think I'll go for the second one. Definitely the money. And, it's the situation that we tend to forget that, I went for that. But in the long run, what I could have done is I could have done my MH because I would still be very, very valuable in the marketplace regardless. And, that would stifle your growth in the future. Because for me now, I'm due to be chartered, but they want to see a further learning scheme. I've done a lot of courses, NEBOSH, APMP, you name them, but they need to see all that stuff. So no one says it's easy. It's never going to be easy for anyone on here that's going to be thinking about a graduate scheme. But one thing you've got to do is you've got to keep being hardworking. You've got to be extremely humble, because someone said once is people don't really employ people for what they know. They employ them for how they mesh with a team. And if you look like someone that's not going to be a good team player, no one needs you in the right place. I can guarantee you the people that are, the top of the class in wherever degrees they've done, and they don't get a job. So that's my own 2 pence. I don't know if I probably deviated off the question, but that's the biggest issue you face is asking me a question, because I'll just dive in. But yeah.
That was great, Winston. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Just to pivot on that, obviously you mentioned chartership. So one of the things that the mentoring team have is they're supporting engineers that want to become chartered, and we try to align you with chartered engineers to help. Me myself, I'm a chartered engineer, so it's definitely something to work. Thank you. It's definitely something to work towards, and it will help you within your career. Obviously, depending on what kind of industry you're in, Allegria is in software development, so becoming a chartered engineer, I guess, isn't something that is hotly pursued. But it could be if that's something that you'd like to do. So
I'm just due applying for my. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just due applying for. I stopped my application when I decided to travel around the world, and honestly, trust me, getting a traveling bug is one of the worst things you want to be having in your place of employment. So I stopped working. I took voluntary redundancy in September, and I think Ollie was heavily involved when I was speaking to him during that period. And so I left in September, and I did a lot of traveling and applied for a job and started in January. But the chartership side of things was already in motion. But cost of this, obviously, you've got this COVID-19, everywhere now, and we all looking. You can see everyone's beard is like, everyone is looking like a caveman. So that's kind of started to slow down things a little bit. So I will get there. I'll really get there, hopefully. So it's not an issue. Hello.
I believe you will, most definitely.
Yeah.
Allegria, did you want to add to that?
Yeah.
We were talking about chartership. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, definitely. Chartership is something that is valuable everywhere that you go in the engineering sector. Because I also said that I didn't graduate in computer science or anything like that. When I graduated, it was for electrical and electronic engineering. But then when I started my graduate scheme, I didn't enjoy the technical side of it, going on site, that kind of thing, too much. So I decided to deviate a bit and go into software engineering. But it is still something that I might push it just in case I change again, So, yeah.
Trust me, yeah. We all have that in us. At some point, we change. Change is inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, to come to another point that when you were... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So like when you start on a graduate scheme, what you think, like what you graduated in, or what you think that you will end up being, it's probably not exactly. It may be, but it might not be what you want. So once you get there, is where you actually see all the sides of that job description, and then decide if it's possible then to go
Yeah.
on that.
There's some people that have never seen calculators since they go into an office. And you know, you go all through. Well, my job, I tend to do calculations, but the first few years, not really. You've got guys that are either contracted or guys that you know, you've got contractors, and you've got guys that are that are just specialists in doing those kind of jobs. Or you've got guys that actually work in you know, institutions and firms. So you go into there and you're thinking someone's going to ask you to do Ketchup's law. No one cares about Ketchup's law there, so it's weird. But yeah, I understand the Allegria. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just to go on what you're just mentioning there, what are the biggest misconceptions or myths about being a graduate? Noah, do you want to share? Do you want to share that?
To be honest, that calculator one's probably up there. To be honest, I think biggest misconceptions. I think for me, it would probably be. I think for me, it's probably be you'll be doing a lot more spreadsheet. For me, it's a lot more learning using spreadsheets and actually okay. Mine be probably having to deal with people. I think in engineering, you probably have to deal with so many people. Like you think, oh, you just have to sit behind the computer and do calculations and all this, but no. I think majority of meetings or having presentations or doing all of that. So I think for me, that's probably why they probably emphasize group interviews a lot, because that is such an important thing. And for me, it was in my first week, my first month, I had to sit in all these different meetings with all these different people and speak about all these different things. And it's like, okay, I didn't think this would be part of it, but I think that's one of the things I had to learn very quickly.
Thank you for that, Noah. Allegria, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest misconception is just something that Winston said. After you graduate, you definitely not an expert. In fact, you just started learning. So when I started the graduate scheme, because I already had the internship in my bag as well, I was like, hey, I have some experience, you know, I know some stuff. And it turns out it was not. And I had to learn a lot of things. You have to keep learning. You have to keep booking onto courses. You have to keep your portfolio going, really, and learn new things. When you graduate, it's just the starting point, and you have to keep going in order to still be relevant, really.
Yeah, the industry changes really fast, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about being an engineer. So things are constantly improving and getting better, and you need to stay on your toes and learning these new things within the industry. So that's really good. One thing I'd like to point out as well, so from what I've heard, Allegria and Winston both did internships beforehand. So that is definitely a way of getting in to an industry before you've actually graduated, and it's something that I think people should consider more. As mentees that I've had in the past, I've always tried to encourage them to try and work somewhere in the summer, different places if they can, so that they're building relationships, and those relationships can turn into job offers. There's a saying, I don't know if I can remember right now, warm hellos are better than cold introductions, or something like that. So if you've met someone before, or you've been in the industry before, and you see them, or you can maybe even message them on LinkedIn and say, oh, my degree is coming to an end. Is there any opportunities? Could I do something a couple of days a week or something? And that can turn into a career for you. So, so I think it's good that we have two examples of people that sought internships and then turned those internships into roles. That's my Sunday in the background. Just to pivot as well, Ollie has mentioned in the group chat. So if anyone wants to ask any questions while we're in the group chat, please feel free. So Ollie has mentioned that we have all our social media. Please feel free to add those. Association for BME Engineers on Twitter, Instagram, AFB UK, and Facebook as well. And we also have a LinkedIn group. So if you haven't joined those, please do. We also have a membership. Obviously, if you're not already a member, I'd deeply encourage you to join. We have many benefits, obviously, events that we have going throughout the year, as well as mentorship. Unfortunately, if you're not a member, we can't sort you out with a mentor. So that's something that is very important. So yeah, let's move on. What was I going to say? Mine's gone blank there. One of the things that, thank you, Ollie, for that link in the chat room. So one of the things that you mentioned, Allegra, was you're always learning. And I think one of the benefits as well from being in a graduate scheme where there is rotation is because you've worked in different places, and if you induction ready, warm hello, should I say, you could potentially pivot into another. So that is that you can have as being a graduate in a graduate scheme. Do either one of you want to talk about, actually, Noah, do you have rotations in WSP? Is it the same, or is it just specific to one role?
Yeah, so my company, well, WSP, we do rotations a bit differently. WSP's graduate scheme's a bit, how do I put it? It's up to you how you want your kind of career to go in WSP. So they say if you want a rotation, you're free to rotate to another team or group.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to rotate, like there's not really a structure like that per se. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't rotated yet, but I'm in the process of rotating to another division. I'm trying to rotate into the I studied mechanical engineering at uni, and then now I'm a systems engineer. Now I like systems engineering, but I want to do more mechanical related roles. So I've been speaking to my line manager about transferring into another team, and that's one thing I've learned is it's really important to have a good relationship with your line manager in terms of when it comes to rotating in my company. And I don't know about other companies, but in my company it's really good because they're the ones who kind of lead the way and push it forward for you to rotate and for you to go into other teams, and they will speak to the other line managers or other team directors and other teams to get you into that team to rotate and do other work. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for rotating as well, because it allows you to kind of pick out like something another team's doing, and you could kind of do work in that team. And I'm a big advocate for that.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Noah. Winston, your experience with rotating, was it more of using your own initiative like Noah had to, or was it a set structure in your company?
It was set. I think you've got to be, and you can take it in two ways. It's some people prefer to make decisions for themselves, but one thing you should understand is not every decision you make is the right one. So some people prefer to have a set rotation, because what happens with a set rotation is there's already a plan there. You don't need to go out and start asking a line manager, can I go and speak to this guy if he wants me on his team, because they can literally come back and say no. And you've not built that much relationship in actually doing a rotation. So mine was set. So it was set for 3 monthly. So, but most of the ones I did ended up being 6 months. I'm not going to say maybe they like me too much, but I might say it because I can be arrogant sometimes. But yeah, it ended up being 6 months. I think what happened is the more projects come in, the more they tend to keep you in certain places. So it became 4 rotations in 2 years. So I think if you start doing 3 months, you might pick a bits and pieces here and there, but it's not necessarily, you don't really get that much in-depth knowledge of what you're looking for in departments. So I think 6 monthly is half a year is quite enough time for people to understand exactly how that business unit does operate. So, and mine was like 4 rotations in 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We got some questions in the group. First one being for Allegria. So the question reads: what was the application process like for the internship? Like, with regards to how should students start to look for internships?
When I was looking for one, I was told by the careers bureau at my university that I should start around October, November time, because most of the adverts go out around that time, and the recruitment process starts around January, February, up until March, April. At that time, they already have their candidates, so that's too late for you. So I think the earliest is the best. So October, November time, I would say.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a next question, which is, thank you, Abby, for that question. We have Chi with the next question for anyone to answer. What's your social life like now as a professional, and how does it differ from when you were at uni? It's Noah.
Mine's probably better because I have more money. But yeah, it's fine. Like it's all about your time management, and I try to do all my work again because I'm a grad. The amount of work I have isn't super. It's not. It can be intense sometimes, but what I've learned is it's all about time management. I manage my time fairly. I think I manage my time fairly well, so I still have time to go out, see friends, have fun when I can. You just can't be doing those crazy Thursday night raves and then expect to come to work on Friday morning, or you just don't do that because it's not really a good look. But apart from social life, yeah, mine I don't think it's been impacted by work. There might be times when I might have work I need to really get done, or a deadline might be coming up, and I might say, you know what, I'm gonna stay at. I'm not gonna go anywhere this weekend. I need to finish something off. Or with my chartership work, I might take a weekend to just make sure it's up to date. But overall, I wouldn't. It's not for me anyway. It's not anything that's impeded my social life in any way.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Noah. Wait. Oh, sorry. You're still talking. Oh no. Have you finished? Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you for that, Noah. Do either one of you want to add on to that? Has your social life changed at all, Winston?
Oh well, I would say work-life balance. Well, for me, I have more of a social life now than I ever had in uni. So that is really weird. But like I said, I did travel for a bit. People that know me on here would know that I love life. So I have a bigger social life. Trust me, being professional doesn't necessarily hamper that. I think it's all your own narrative. If you manage your time, like Noah said, and keep work for work, and when you come home, you do things that actually makes you happy, I think you'd see the productivity in your day-to-day job. But if you come back home worrying about what Joe Blogs said in the office, and you end up eating a happy meal every single night because you can't be bothered cooking, and then you would also see a total degradation in your day-to-day work. So to answer that question, my social life is very fine. Pre-COVID.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you mentioned COVID. So how is everyone coping as far as work? Were your companies set up to work from home, or was there a bit of adjustment for that? Obviously, Allegria doing software development, it's probably a bit more easier. But was there a learning curve or an adjustment for you, Allegria?
Yes, because I'm in software development, but I work on railway projects, and most of the time, what I do need to be uploaded on servers that are on site. So there was a bit of adjustment on how I can access those servers because they are on the local IP address. But other than that, it's been okay. It's just like adjusting like everyone else, like everything but being virtual and stuff. But yeah.
Excellent. What about yourself, Noah? Working in the railway industry as well, how have you had to adjust, or was your company like prepared for a scenario like, well, not a scenario like this, but to work from home on a mass scale?
To be fair, for me personally, they don't really, because they don't really like grads working from home. This is the first time I've really been working from home, so for me it was a big adjustment for me. I can't lie, it was tough. There'll be times where I struggle to really log off the computer because I might be on it for too long, and I'm realizing, oh, it's getting to like 6:30, and I'm still on this. So, but for my company overall, I think the major problem was mainly that everyone was always trying to Skype call you for every little thing. So it might be just a simple, oh, can you send me this document? They just want to Skype call you to send you the document. Like every little thing, there will be a Skype call. You have to have a meeting, or people start trying to micromanage you and things like that. Now that everyone's gotten used to the whole situation, it's kind of eased off now. But at the start, it was a bit of, because no one was used to this. Everyone's used to getting up and just go and walk to someone and say, oh, I need this. But apart from that, yeah, my company, they kind of handled it okay with setting everyone up to work from home. It's just, yeah, it's all right for now, but we'll see how it goes in the long term, you know.
Yeah, of course. Winston, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, ours is quite hard. We've got letters. I've got a letter because I'm normally on the emergency response teams for the FPSO. So initially it started with doing 2 days at work, and I was at the office on Tuesday last week. But working from home, and I think with Allegria as well, I think it's a case of, assessing the local IP network systems. You can't really access setting up the network drives. That was the issue. And also, like what Noah said as well, is everyone wants to call me now or call someone. Everyone is calling everybody. And emails are no longer, because people just need that social interaction. I think that's what it is. People are not, emails is fine, but people just need to hear other people's voice. I think people want to hear if you're doing badly. It makes them feel they're doing good sometimes. So, so it's been okay, but I can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for that. Question for all of you, actually. So, little secret here out the back. So I was in a graduate scheme. I was a graduate myself. And one of the things that I experienced was being in a big organization. You kind of got lost in it, not knowing like the structure or who to speak to, what departments to try and get working. So how did you manage that and navigate around that? Winston?
I think it was just being smile a lot. It tends to work. Take every day and apologize for interrupting people. Some people take it personal. In meetings, I just tend to be really, really quiet because people hate overbearing people. If I'm being asked a question, I speak. But if I'm not being asked a question, instead of making a fool out of myself, I just listen. Also, I think you should look around for the people that have the experience, because those are the ones that has been there and done that. Got the t-shirt and the hoodie. Tend to go out for walks with the senior engineers. When the office was open, go out for walks, go out for coffee, chat with them. You know, they kind of get closer to you. They give you the secret drives or the secret documents that would help you to learn. But with everything else, you can't really please everybody. There's some people out there that no matter how many times you tell them good morning, they're never going to reply to you. And everyone has that one person in their offices. But the only way to break that barrier is just keep saying good morning. You know, at the end of the day is what's the worst that can happen. So in a big organization, it's for me, it's a case of just people management. It's conflict management, knowing when to walk away, knowing when to stand your ground and tell them you're not fool. That is the hardest bit. I think the hardest bit is putting your point across, because some people tend to be, they're always right. So it's not easy, but it's not hard either ways. I think we all come from backgrounds where we're kind of really grounded, and we have respect in us, you know. So if you show people respect, we'll give you back in return. So yeah, so it was challenging, but not too hard.
Excellent. Yeah. I like that, Winston. Just to add on to what you were saying, before I pass on to Allegra. One of the things that I did in my experience was when I moved to another place in a rotation, was try and find out who the influential people were in that department and try and book in a one-to-one with them, just to pick their brains and tell their story, because people love to talk about themselves. So just that's a way of building rapport with people that you've just met. And I think also working in rotations, it kind of prepares you for the real world, because you might be moving to different places, going into different meetings with individuals that you've never met before, but having that practice again and again of having to meet new people and introduce yourself and make them feel comfortable, as well as portraying yourself as an engineer or a professional. You definitely learn that in those situations. But yeah, so moving on to Allegra. So working for Siemens, how do you find that and navigating around that?
Well, Siemens is it's very big, and it has a lot of like different divisions. So in my experience, I've only stayed in the railway area, and I think the rotations were just from project to project. It wasn't like from people doing different stuff, really. It was just different projects like Crossrail, Qatar, whatever. So I think the first thing to do is to be very humble and just show a willingness to learn. When you come across those people, most of them are very experienced. In my experience anyway, they are very experienced and very knowledgeable, and you want to learn from them. So it's just going to them and, of course, smile and ask questions and ask directions if you can find things somewhere else. And also bring cupcakes on Friday. It helps. It does help if you bring food to work.
Just buy Krispy Kremes.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing I did anytime I left a department. I always put the time into bring Krispy Kremes or something.
Always bring something to eat.
I tend to eat what people bring. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we have more questions in the group. We have a question from Trudy. Do you see any benefits from professional affiliations from institutes in your company? From my personal experience, so I worked in public sector. I worked for Transport for London, and you had to become chartered off your own accord. There wasn't any benefit. There wasn't any compensation for getting it. It was more so for me. It was a personal goal. So that's what drove me to do it. And I actually found my mentor for my chartership in TfL. So that was useful. But for yourselves working in private sector, do you see any benefits from it? Go with Noah. I know you're working towards it. So.
Yeah. Actually, for me, because WSP, it's part of the grad scheme that you have to work towards getting chartered. So there's a whole process for us to sign up, and it's actually mandatory that we have to they give us a mentor in the company that helps us with our chartership. We have to have meetings every now and then. For me, I think it really is helping me quite a bit because with the chartership and the competencies and all of that, it's kind of structuring how I rotate in the company. For example, because I'm ticking off certain things in my competencies, and then now I'm looking at certain things, and I'm realizing in my current role, for example, there's a lot of presentations and management type of things that I tick off in my competency, but there's not a lot of design related work. So now that because of the chartership and how it's working is now I can kind of see, okay, I need to do more design work. So let me find the team that does design work. It's kind of driving my, it's even just helping me drive my rotations and how I'm actually moving in my career as well. So I think it's quite helpful. And the fact that having a mentor in the company, it really helps because there's certain things, there's certain things you might not want to speak to a line manager about, or there's certain things that you kind of need to speak to someone else who's in a position that you want to be, and I think it's really helpful. So I think chartership is kind of helping me steer my career at the start anyway.
Excellent. Just to remind people, please feel free to add questions in the chat. There's been a few questions already, but we'll get to those in a second. Winston, you mentioned chartership as well. So does your organization acknowledge chartership, or does it help you in any way? Thank you for that, Noah.
No worries.
When I joined WEARS, there was a monitored professional development scheme. So you had to basically do reports, and as Noah said, you have mentors that check your reports, and you know, organize meetings with your line managers, and go through stuff. So I finished that, finished all that MPDS, but I never went for the chartership because in my head I felt people really don't understand this. The values of chartership is actually knowing what you're talking about. Certain people tend to just get chartership with just reports. And I feel you need the experience, and you also need the knowledge of the work you're doing to be able to say I'm chartered. Because the last thing I wanted to do was go in front of a panel and BS. So if I was going to be chartered, I wanted to be chartered, based on my accolades. So yes, there's benefits for professional affiliations in the company I'm currently in, because chartership means more money, more bonus, salary recap. And what's so good about it now, it's companies, which I think Noah's probably do the same, and Allegria, I think they tend to pay for your professional registration. So I'm a member of the IET, and I'm also a member of the IMECE. And this is talking about over £200 every year for membership, and the companies are paying for that. And so there's benefits to that. If you're not paying for something that's going to be valuable, not only for the free library resources that you get on these platforms, but also for the networking capabilities that you get. And AFB obviously is, it's one of them. I'm just going to put it out there as well. For the networking, the free information, you get from it as well. I think it's definitely worth it. You definitely get benefits from it. Yeah.
Most definitely. Thank you for that, Winston. Just to tap onto the end of that. So again, being part of the mentorship team, that is one of the benefits of becoming a member of AFB. We can align you with a mentor in an industry you want to get into, or an industry that you're already in. And they can support you if chartership is one of your goals. One of the events that we were working on was like a chartership boot camp, or even for fellowships. So that is something that we hope to get running up in the future, providing COVID settles down out here. So yes, Allegra. So in Siemens, obviously you studied as an electrical engineer and you're doing software development. And you did mention that chartership is something you still want to pursue. Does Siemens still acknowledge it? Does it benefit you or others?
Yeah, it definitely. When you are an intern or graduate, it's usually one of your targets, your yearly targets, to achieve either the Einsteck or the charter status. But then it has values to me. It has value to me as well, even just for the networking opportunities that I could get from there. Being able to compete for like Women Year of the Year, you never know. So you need to be able to. It's kind of a milestone. So if you achieve a chartership, you can say, okay, I've gotten to this point. This is already accredited forward, and I can move forward. And that is already documented. So yeah, it's definitely something useful.
Excellent. That's great. What was I going to say? In regards to chartership as well, just to dispel some myths, you don't have to be the manager of the whole company or have loads of reports. You could lead a project, be in charge of something, and that project has budgets and people that work on that project, there are resources. So that's you managing money and things of that nature. So that's one thing that my mentor taught me, because a lot of engineers tend to struggle with the management or leadership thing. So with rotations, again, that will help, like Noah mentioned. You can go to places and find the kind of things that you're missing. But yeah, that's chartership. So I don't want people to feel like it's not obtainable. But yeah, thank you for that, Allegria. We have some more questions. So we have a question from Ollie. Have any of you had to deal with difficult people in your career so far, and how did you deal with it? Let's go with Winston, seeing as you have the longer career.
Oh yes, hell yeah. Difficult people is like, there's some people you can never please. You can cross all your T's and dot all your I's, but there's certain people that it doesn't matter what you do, they're always going to nitpick. And some might do it in good faith. Some might do it because they want to help you and make you accountable for stuff you do, but some might just do it because they just don't want to see you succeed, or that's the way I feel anyways. And so yes, I've met difficult people. I think what I did is I tend to practice conflict management, if anyone has come across it. So the easiest one for me is basically accommodating and trying to collaborate. People, like you mentioned earlier on, people tend to warm up to you when you make them feel good about themselves. And when you make people that have been in the industry longer than you feel good about themselves, that's a plus. And they might not like you, or in a professional environment, they will have to work with you, and that's where the collaboration comes in. So I've practiced those two very, very well, because the last thing you want to be doing in engineering is too much of compromising, because then once you start compromising too much, then safety and integrity start being called into, it gets called into everything now. So my industry, many of us here, compromising is one of the last things you want to do, because the person you might be compromising it with might be wrong. And then it ends up being much more for a catastrophic event. So it's the only way I've managed it, Ollie. I've just been good at accommodating people. I've been good at being honest, and at the same time not hurting people's feelings by my words. If someone doesn't know something, you can just speak to them later. And what I tend to do is pick moments when I can have a conversation with that person. If that person is looking down, I might not say anything. The best place to actually have a conversation with people in a big organization is in the coffee room or the break area, because the moment they walk in there means they want to have a coffee and they want to relax from the screens. So I tend to do that a lot. But yeah, there's not been any blows being thrown in the workplace. Please don't throw any blows in the workplace. You would not have a job in the morning. But that's how I've managed to deal with it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Winston. Noah, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I haven't had major confrontations or anything of that sort. But
everyone is nice to graduate.
I just had a moment. Yeah.
Until you pass your scheme.
That's what I mean. I think for me, I've just had moments where I had to kind of grit my teeth when people don't, because I'm a grad, people think that they could kind of just mug you off a bit in the sense that you might ask for some work that like you might ask for some work that they're doing because in system engineering, a lot of the work that I do is based off the work that other people do. So I might be asking for some work to analyze, and then they might say, "Oh, it's not done yet. I'll come back in tomorrow. You'll come tomorrow. Oh yeah, it's still not done. It'll come back." And then they might just keep mugging you off and do things like that. And I think what I've had to learn is I've had to learn to kind of be stern but fair in the sense that I've had to say, because before I'd think, oh, I'm a grad, let me not step on anyone's toes. But then now I've come and said, actually, no, this certain things need to be done. So you have to kind of, puff up your chest and say, no, this needs to be done, and it has to be done now. You know what I mean? So I think those are the things that I've had to kind of learn to deal with. I think I get a lot of those sort of moments there where people are just they see you as a grad and they think you're a small boy and try to just send you on your way. I mean, for me, it's learning how to be stern but fair with a lot of older people as well. I mean, that's my main thing. I've had to deal with a lot of that.
Excellent, great insight there, Noah. Allegria, have you had any issues like that yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely, yes. One example that I can remember is when I was trying to move to the software department. They had a new manager, and I was asking for a place there, and he was not having it at all mostly because of my lack of experience in programming. But then the thing that he told me was, I don't fit with the dynamic of the group. And I was like, what do you mean? So the one thing that I need like people to know is your line manager is your best option. So I went to speak to him, and I also spoke to my mentor at work. And I was trying to understand what he wanted to say, and then I went back to him and say, okay, so if I am here, then you can show that you are developing people, etc., showing him what his benefit will be in accepting me into the group. But yeah, so it's a lot of communicating, being very honest, and I would say not being offended very easily.
I haven't thick skin. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Allegria. Just something Noah mentioned actually. People knowing that you're a graduate, maybe not giving you the responses that you require or you need to do your job. So one thing that I did, I don't know if any of you did this, was I removed graduate from my email, just so that they take you a bit more seriously and be a bit more snappy. Or I don't know, have either or any of you had to do things like that, or it doesn't work that way in your company?
I didn't think of doing that, but I probably am now.
Yeah, let me know how that goes for you. Maybe yeah.
I will.
Yeah, if everyone knows who you are, then maybe it won't be that beneficial. But if you're talking to someone in another part of the organization and you need some work done, just take graduate out of your title. I wouldn't say accept work that is beyond your remit, but if you ask for something, maybe they'll add a bit more respect to your name if they don't realize that you're a graduate. So that's maybe something to take on board. But yes, Renif has a question in the group. She says, have you decided where you want to be in your future career? So some of you mentioned rotating, and Winston has moved around quite a bit. So obviously you're quite early in your career. Have you decided this is where you want to be, or are you still willing to move around? Allegria.
Yes, I'm happy where I am at the moment, but I probably won't be in 5 years. So I would say that for now, I will continue developing my programming skills, given that I don't have like a degree in it, and then try to get into project management probably.
Okay, excellent. Winston?
Me? I would like to my future career is just to be, well, everyone is different. Maybe retire.
Yeah, you trying to retire early? Because we all have to retire at one point.
Oh yeah, be my own boss in the next few years.
Got you.
Well, that is tentative. For me, my role, I think, is going more into more of a superintendent role in the future. Going to a role of more, instead of being one of the pawns, being more of the people to delegate, influence, and inspire people. So more of a senior role where I've, have an understanding of the, the day-to-day operations of any job I've been in, or the experience I've got over the years, and being able to impact people's lives with the experience I've got, the likes of Ollie and, doing all that now, being able to, impact people's life with the experience I've got. So I think I'm trying to set myself up for being at the point in my career where I would still be valuable to a company with regards to the knowledge I can bring in, but being able to develop other people into roles in the future. I think I'll be looking forward to being much more of a mentor rather than a ground soldier. That doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean. Yeah, instead of that, yeah.
Yeah, we'd definitely be more than welcome to have you a part of our mentoring database. So
I don't know if Trudy wants that.
but yes, Allegria, have you answered that already?
No.
Oh yeah, I think you did. Or
no, Allegria hasn't.
No, okay, yes.
I don't know.
The future career, yeah, I
have. Noah hasn't.
Yeah.
I don't think Noah has.
Noah hasn't. Yeah.
Allegria
said project management, I think.
I think for me, future career-wise, I haven't thought super far ahead. I probably thought maybe in like a year or two. I should probably be thinking far ahead, but just because I've just started, I'm trying to kind of figure out what I like doing. So I'm trying to figure out my rotations. I think that's what I'm trying to think further as far as I can, because I'm trying to figure out what do I like doing. Do I like doing more systems engineering and analyzing other people's designs, or do I want to be a designer, or do I like more project management stuff? So I'm just trying to figure out. Once I figure out what I like more, then I could probably figure out what I want to do further on. So that's why I'm trying to get as many rotations in as possible to kind of see what I like doing. And once I figure out what I like doing, then I can kind of give a better answer of what I want to do further on. But I think, yeah, as far as my future career goes, all I know is I'm going to be chartered in a few years. And then once that's done, then we can see what happens next with Noah. But yeah, that's as far as I can think of.
Excellent. So you're still trying to find out more things and get some more experience before you make that decision.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Renan, for that question. It was a really good one. Got some more comments in the group chat. Ollie has mentioned that Allegria dropped a big truth bomb. Ensure that your line manager is not your mentor. Yeah, Winston agrees. Yeah, that can be a conflict of interest sometimes. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. That was the same case for myself. My line manager was not my mentor at all. But one thing you can do as well, as far as mentorship, I keep mentioning mentorship being part of the mentor team, is you can have mentors for different things. Not necessarily, you could see something in a colleague that a skill that you want to obtain, and you just want to ask them some questions. Or, for example, in TFL, there was a gentleman that just really knew how to manage himself in meetings and get his point across, or get something done that he wanted to get done without any conflict. It was like a Jedi, like just wave his hand and things would just happen. And I learned a lot from him, and he was like such a gentleman. Like I remember asking him to explain something to me, but I didn't really get it. But then I asked him again another time, and he was apologetic that I didn't understand it. So he felt like he hadn't done a good enough job teaching it to me. So it's always good to try and find mentors in your workplace and try and find them for different things. And it's also a good way of networking as well. So yeah, that's a little bit more mentoring stuff. I'll stop with mentoring, I promise. So let's move on to the chat room. So we've got a question from Mimi. I have a question for Winston. This is Mimi. I'm talking as Mimi. I left my graduate scheme early, and now I have an assistant engineering role. How I work on many projects. How I work on many projects and many projects at the same time. Now I work on many projects at the same time. I now have more responsibilities and still learning. Some being very heavy, as I'm the only person who does what I do in my organization. How do you suggest I manage people's expectations and my time? So, Winston.
One that tends to work most times is whenever you've got people giving you, make no assumptions. Try not to make an assumption because people will give you jobs and they will say, oh, no, we need to get this done now. Before you accept any responsibility, especially in a given environment, just make no assumptions. Get the context of the job. Understand what the person is asking for. If there's opportunities to get details, make sure there's no level of miscommunication between yourself and the person. Because if there's miscommunication, you end up not doing the job, you end up worrying too much. And it's always okay, and I say this to a lot of people, it's okay to push back. It's okay to say, well, if this is not a P1, if this is not a priority, can we just step back for a bit and reevaluate? Because I know it's hard when you're a graduate, Mimi, and you're trying to manage expectations. You're trying to, show yourself out to be, the golden child. But no one is looking for a superhero. People are just looking for someone that is efficient. And so if you know that it's affecting you in terms of your time, you need to start basically having a diary system where you prioritize your jobs. I've got one next to me here. It's a case of just details of stuff as they come in. And then it's a case of sending an email out, cascading information out to people and saying, what is it exactly you want? Some of the information they'll come back with could be something that you could do in like 2-3 minutes. It could be finding an information out on, on a document or whatever it is, or looking at lacunas in a statement. It could be anything. And so you've got to understand, and the only way you can understand that is through regular communication. You need to constantly communicate with them. If you're not communicating with the person, you can't really tell what expectations they have. And the biggest issue is going back to someone, asking the same question. It's fine when you do that first time, second time, third time, but when you keep doing that over and over and over again, what that shows is a high level of incompetency. So if the first time or the second time, get as much details as possible. And then if it's something that you're not qualified to do, what I see in competency is your skills, your knowledge, your ability, I think your training, your experience, and your limitations. If anyone wants to do anything, make sure you understand your limitations. So if you can't do something, be the first person to raise up your hand and say you can't. There's no biggest issue than bullshitting in the workplace, because you always get caught out. Always be honest and transparent. If you can't do something, I think that's the issue. We all know that we are learning as we go, but sometimes, especially when you've come out of your graduate scheme too early, you tend to, jobs are coming, and some of them you've not had the experience to deal with because you never had that thrown at you whilst you were going through your graduate scheme, which you've mentioned very, very clearly. So what you do in situations like that is you ask information from people that must have done it in the past. And if they've not, you can go back to the person and say, listen, with all due respect, I have not done this. Instead of me tackling this task, if you give me more time, or if you ask this person, they can be able to help you with this. Because most times in an organization, the only way you succeed is if you don't have an information or don't know an information, is being able to point to someone else that knows that information. You can be a knowledge bank, or you could be a referral bank. It depends on how you want to operate. So for me, I just think it's know your limitations, raise up your hand and say when you don't know, communicate, get the context, get details of the information that's being passed on to you, establish regular communication with the person, and do not go ahead and do a job if you've not got clear deliverables on the job. So it's a mixture of things, but if you've, I had this, I'll give you an example. I had this issue with one of the jobs. It had to do with a pump. It was a re-rate. And I had no idea how to re-rate. I never had an idea how to re-rate that pump because I was only 1 year into the industry. I went around and I looked at every single books, and I can tell you many nights I spent looking at knowledge books and reading pumps and reading everything, and I never was able to find that out. And all it took was a communication with one person who gave an answer in less than 2 minutes. And that was the time that I spent I would never get back. So please just learn to be transparent and be honest and say when you don't know. Thank you.
Excellent.
I hope that answers. Yeah.
Yes,
so
you said thank you in the chat. So yes, that's
more like a War and Peace. It's long-winded, but I hope he answers.
There's lots of gems in there. I hope everyone's just got their hands out ready to catch them. So
God,
that's great.
Be careful what you catch, huh?
But that was great. Thank you, Winston. I want to ask a similar question to Allegria and Noah. So, as far as being fairly new in the workplace and your career, how do you know like how much time you, if it's maybe the first time or you've already done it a few times? How do you manage the expectation of your managers or whoever's asked you for the task if you're learning it as you're going along? Noah, starts you.
I think me personally, I first used to be. I thought I was a superstar, and I thought I could do everything. And then someone will give me work and say, "Oh, can you do this? Yeah, I could do that. Can you do this? Yeah, I could do that. Can you do this? Yeah, I could do everything." And it got to a point where in 1 week I had like 5 pieces of work I had to get done by the end of the week, and it was one of the worst weeks I've had at work. And then after that, I spoke to my line manager, because me and my line manager, we have a fairly good relationship. So I spoke to her and I said, "Yeah, this workload is a bit much." And then she just said to me, "So have you told the people you work with that you can't do this work? Will you ask for extensions?" I said, "No, it'll make me look bad." She said, we'll make you look worse asking for extension, getting it and finishing the work, or not asking for it, and then when the time comes when people ask you for the work, you say you don't have it." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." So for me, it got to a point where I think I started writing everything I do down. I have a diary of all the work I have to do, and then I think now I can kind of assess with certain things if it's gonna be how long it's gonna take. And then whenever people ask, "Oh, how long will it take to get this done?" I might add like an extra day or two just so that I got a bit of leeway with a bit of work, just so that I could get it done to the best that I can. And I think that's one of the best things I learned is sometimes make sure you have a bit of leeway with work, just so that unless it's really urgent, fair enough. But if it's not urgent, then you can kind of just push it back a bit so that you got time to do it. And I think that's a really important thing for me.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Noah. Allegria, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to add, I mean, for me, I think it's the same in a lot of organizations. So when they give you a piece of work, they also tell you how much you can book against that project for your timesheets, right? So what I usually do, I assess what the deliverables are and how long it will take me to do that and block that time in my calendar. So if someone else comes out and say they need something done, then I can ask, can I do this next week? Or yeah, I can kind of push back.
Excellent. That's very good advice. Yeah, so you have to be very organized and use the tools that you have to your advantage. Okay, so we're gonna move on to another question in the group. But yeah, Mimi, thank you for that question and thank you guys for answering. They're really good. We have Matthew. So how much does your work and personal lives overlap? Do you have friends at work? Do you hang out with them after? Winston, you wanna start first? Go on.
I have work colleagues, in simple terms, because it's like a dogfight in a big organization. Is a dogfight. So, do I go out for a drink? I'm not saying that I do indulge all the time, but do I go out for a nip here and there? Well, yeah, I do. Do I go for bowling nights? Yes, I do. Do I go and play ping pong? Yes, I do. But do I classify everyone that I do those stuff with as friends? No, I don't. So I think is friends are totally different. Friends are people you can literally tell everything. The biggest mistake you would make in the workplace is letting everyone in the work know what time you wake up in the morning, what time you go to the gym, what time you run your errands, and basically what your wife does that drives you nuts, or your girlfriend, or your partner. So it will always come up in conversation. And what happens is when they all gather around and when people gossip, your name pops up as the guy that's got numerous forms of social life. And then what people forget is subconsciously, they tend to put what you do outside work as the way you operate in work. So if this is a guy that goes out on a Friday night or goes out on a Saturday night for a drink, Sunday night he's sober, Monday he comes back to work, even if he's the most active person, they say, oh, he might still be drunk, or he's still sober. This guy's not a serious person. Once he gets to Friday, he's out and about. So friends are people I'll tell that, and no one in the workplace would ever know. Sorry. Yeah. So no one in the workplace would ever be, well, I've got people in the workplace that I'll tell, maybe I'll give them a grain and let them chase for the bag. But I would not consider them friends. That's my own opinion. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that. Yeah. No, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Winston. In the sense that I think there's some people at work that I would say are very we're very cool with each other. But I have seen that for some people, when they do get too close to you, there's certain people at work, when they get too close to you, they start to kind of fool around a bit, or they start to kind of, I think there's a certain boundary that there should be at work, you know what I mean? And I think certain people that I've seen in certain situations, when they get a bit too close, that certain respect that they have for you starts to go away, and they start to act a bit weird, or they try to make certain jokes that you don't like, and so, or they might start
100%.
speaking about saying your name in situations where you're like, so yeah, I agree. I think it shouldn't be a thing where you're antisocial. I don't agree with being antisocial. I think you should socialize with people. Like I said, when there's those after work activities, yeah, you go and do all of that. But again, telling people your personal business that you might tell your best friend, it's not, there's certain things you shouldn't really be telling people, just because you don't know how people might be, you don't know, maybe in like a few years, you might be going for that promotion. You might both be going for that promotion, and what you told them back then might come up. I don't know, but that's how I kind of see it. So I see it as, work colleagues we can have friendly conversations.
Yeah, very, 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 very true. Because the moment people start becoming friends, they become less.
No, but I agree very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Noah. Allegria, do you wanna contribute to that?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one, to be honest, because talking as a graduate, there's a lot of networking events you go to, and you're supposed to speak to your colleagues and not necessarily about work stuff. So you can see other people being very relaxed about it and tell their whole life story, and then them being relaxed at work. So it makes it easier for them. But if it's not you, then Personally, I wouldn't. Personally, I don't. Just
Just
no.
talk about football or TV shows. You don't have to tell them about your
Yeah.
personal life.
Yeah, you don't have to be closed off either. It's just like being open, but there's a level of, I don't know if I could say, political correctness you have to have. You have to keep that standard. Yeah.
No, you'd be talking and someone will smack you in the back of the head, and someone will, doing something going really good at work, and someone will come and smack you, and then walk away, and then you're like, really? I'm trying to be professional here, this things happen, Yeah. Don't want that. No.
Excellent. I think everyone agrees with you guys in the comments. So yeah, I think it's something that is widely felt and agreed on. But yes, we're going to end here. I'd like to thank the panel, Noah, Allegria, and Winston. It's been very insightful, and I hope all of the soon-to-be graduate engineers, have learned a lot and picked up all the gems that have been given out today, and I definitely found it very insightful. So thank you, panel, for sharing. And I just want to let everyone know about the other events that we have going on before we leave. So during this COVID times, we've been putting on events weekly. I hope some of you have attended some of those in the past. We have some thanks in the comments, so everyone's appreciating your contributions here today. So coming up, we have on the 27th of May, we have Energy Crisis, the Way Forward, and we have which is a transition seminar as well, webinar, organized by AFB Scotland. Just trying to see the names. We have Dr. From, Craig Shanahy, and Professor Paul DeLue. So if you can find time to register for that. We also have a Real Projects event, Energy Transition, Pandemics and Resilience. That is on the 27th of May. And that is with Toyin Fatukum and Abisha Goswami. I hope I didn't pronounce that incorrectly. So please sign up to AFBE and be kept up to date with the events we have. Also, we have on the 3rd of June, another Real Projects, which is clinical and biomedical engineering, science behind biology? Anyway, that project is on the 3rd of June. So yes, please sign up and be kept up to date with all the events we have going on. But yes, thank you again to the hosts, and thank you all for joining. Does someone want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, Rahman. I just wanted to sell that event on that's happening next week between 1 and 2 p.m. A bit, because we've been very fortunate to get some very, Craig Shanahay is the president of Europe and Africa operations for Wood, which is one of the big EPC companies. Professor Paul DeLue is one of the most respected voices in the oil industry, who advises the Scottish government on various things to do with the oil industry. Teresa is a senior plant manager at Shell, and Dr. Alex is the employment issues manager for Oil and Gas UK, which is the big trade association that affects all of the energy sector. So very senior, very influential people. It's definitely a session that is worth taking the time out 1 to 2 next week to attend. So I would advise everyone. It's not something you will regret. It'd be a really good session. Sorry, I just thought I'd better sell that a bit.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ollie. Just to add to that, because basically the theme of that event is, in the midst of the energy crisis and, basically low oil price and this COVID pandemic, the theme will be centered around three main areas. So number one, how are the stakeholders in the energy industry trying to deal with this issue? What actions are they taking, for example, to try and cope and remain relevant or remain afloat? And secondly, the second area is, what opportunities do we have or are available within this period, and thirdly, the way forward, because, currently everyone's a bit demotivated, a bit deflated. So it would be good to see what the opportunities and the way forward is, because most people believe like maybe the oil industry is dead, maybe there's no point spending time to do a graduate degree. But it will be good to know that the oil and gas industry still has some life yet. And so those are the kind of questions that will be answered on the day. And as Ollie has said, these are high-profile figures, so it's quite hard. Most of these guys, to get in touch with them, you'll be talking to secretaries. So this is your chance to talk to them one-on-one, and ask questions. So please sign up. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Chidi. Thank you, Ollie. So you've heard them now. Sign up and tune into our next events. Once more, I just want to thank our panel, Allegria, Noah, and Winston. It's been very informative. And I hope everyone stays safe and still tries to get a break every once in a while.
No, we'll try to.
Excellent. So thank you everyone for joining.